Sony unveiled a teaser trailer for the sequel to Miles Morales' Spider-Man last year. It has a style and tone that's quite similar to its predecessor, with Gwen popping in on Miles uninvited. Expect similarly addicting music and a range of amazing new animation styles to fit historical periods, people, and environments. So what can we expect from Spider-Man Across the Spiderverse Part 1? Here's everything you need to know. Will this be able to compete with the other movies? As the arrival of Sony's animated Spider-Man franchise's next chapter, Spider-Man Across the Spiderverse Part 1 approaches, it's safe to say that superhero burnout is a myth. With Spider-Man No Way Home breaking box office records thanks to Spidey's MCU counterpart Tom Holland, and no fewer than 10 superhero films set to hit theaters in 2022, demand and expectations are intense. What's more, it doesn't seem like it's been 4 years since the Oscar-winning Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse wowed critics and audiences alike, prompting producers to guarantee back-to-back sequels in the form of Across the Spider-Verse Part 1 and 2, the latter of which is set for release in 2023. Will the Miles Morales trip this year live up to the hype? Well, let's dive deep into it. It's currently the only superhero film set to hit theaters that month, which bodes well for its box office haul in a year that also includes DC's Batman, Sony's Jared Leto-led Morbius, and the highly anticipated Phase 4 MCU installments, Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, Black Panther, Wakanda Forever, and Thor: Love and Thunder. Thanks to lucrative arrangements made between streamers and the studio last year, Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse Part 1 will enter streaming for a specified timeline, primarily on Netflix for likely 18 months before migrating to Disney+. Other big studio releases such as Morbius, Uncharted, and Bullet Train will follow suit as a result of the arrangement. What's the plot? As expected, the studio is holding the narrative close to its heart, as with every superhero feature these days. Certain things we know, and others we can detect, courtesy of the teaser trailer released late last year. Early shots show an older-looking Miles out of spirits as Gwen makes a surprise visit to his room, indicating that the film opens up shortly after the previous one concluded. We also know that Spider-Gwen will play a significant role, with producer Amy Pascal confirming that the film would explore aspects of Miles and Gwen's relationship that were not included in Into the Spider-Verse. In the teaser, Spider-Man 2099, the futuristic version of everyone's favorite wall crawler who made an appearance in New York in the Into the Spider-Verse post-credit sequence, is shown fighting with Miles' Spider-Man and appears to be a critical element in things this time around. It's difficult to tell if they're fighting or just struggling, but Miguel switches his wristwatch to 928, hinting that he's trying to draw Miles into his timeline. Gwen has a similar wrist gadget, implying that she's teamed up with Miguel and is attempting to recruit Miles in their quest. The thought of an MCU-Sony character crossover, on the other hand, is one of the more exciting theories circulating, following the success of Spider-Man No Way Home, which brought together iconic Spider-Men with Andrew Garfield, Tobey Maguire, and Tom Holland, as well as loaded comments from writers Phil Lord and Chris Miller about the infinite possibilities of the multiverse. There's a good chance characters from No Way Home will appear in this animated feature film. It'd fit right in with the tone of this franchise, which likes to mess with superhero canon's obvious limits. The trailer's usage of hexagons, which were used as gateways in Captain Marvel and Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, as well as the TV series WandaVision to depict the Westview anomaly, or the Hex, to connect universes, gave other signs that this Marvel melding would become a reality. Other Spider people will undoubtedly be included in this year's group, but whether the teaser's references to Spider-Man India, Punk, or Silk are real remains to be seen. One of the greatest unanswered questions, though, is who will play the villain? There's currently no credible proof that identifies the villain, but some suspicion points to the Spot, one of the Kingpin scientists who may be spreading chaos across universes after creating a black portal. The cast. It's no surprise that the stars from the original film return for this sequel, with Shameik Moore and Haley Steinfeld reprising their roles as Miles Morales and Gwen Stacy respectively. They aren't the only cast members from the previous film who will return for the sequel, though. Luna Lauren Velez, who plays Miles' mother Rio, announced her return in June of 2021, informing comicbookmovie.com that they were in the midst of producing the sequel and that her character would have a great story arc. If Velez returns, we may expect Brian Tyree Henry to reprise his role as Miles' father, Jefferson Davis, and Jake Johnson to reprise his role as Miles' mentor, Peter B. Parker, which he announced in July 2021, saying, "I'm curious as to what happens to Peter B. Parker. I believe the way his adventure ended in the first film left a lot of questions unanswered." He was apparently very excited when Sony reached out to him to work out a deal for a sequel and figure the whole thing out. He truly couldn't wait to see what the writers came up with and was curious to see what they had in store. So yes, we'll definitely be seeing Peter B. Parker again. Rejoice, Marvel comic fans. It's also been hinted that Kathryn Hahn will reprise her role as Doc Ock in a larger capacity, and that Issa Rae will appear in the sequel. Jessica Drew, alias Spider-Woman, is reported to be voiced by her, although this has yet to be verified. Issa Rae has expressed interest in playing Spider-Woman, and Oscar Isaac has been cast as Spider-Man 2099. Fan favorites like Nicolas Cage as Spider-Man Noir and John Mulaney's logic-obsessed Spider-Ham are still unknown. Much of the creative team for Across the Spider-Verse Part 1 has been brought over from Into the Spider-Verse, including filmmaking legends Phil Lord and Chris Miller, the minds behind 22 Jump Street and the Lego Movie's unexpected success, who serve as both producers and writers, as well as additional script writing from Dave Callahan, who's responsible for the narrative behind Wonder Woman 1984 and Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings. Amy Pascal, Avi Avrad, the producer of countless Sony superhero movies, and Christina Steinberg, the creative mind behind National Treasure and Rise of the Guardian, are among the producers. Joaquim Dos Santos, Kemp Powers, and Justin K. Thompson, all renowned animation directors, have joined the team too, so it wouldn't be wrong to think that this movie is going to be an absolute masterpiece. Fun fact, did you know that the movie was initially called Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse 2? Yes, it's true. Sony and Marvel announced a change in the title back in December 2021. Why? Well, because the movie's narrative had become so large, they had to change the name and accommodate two separate movies. Yes, that means there will be a Part 1 and a Part 2, both acting as sequels to the Academy Award-winning original film. That will recount an epic narrative in two parts. But we're only going to talk about the first component in this video because considering how little information we have on Part 1 alone, Part 2 is a complete mystery to us at this moment. The sequel's production began in June of 2020. And as far as we know, everything is on schedule for the sequel to hit theaters in October 2022. Although there's a minor delay from the original April 2022 release date, thankfully the teaser has shown that the wait will be well worth it. Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse Part 1 will be released in theaters on October 7th, 2022, which is a small delay from the previously announced April 8th, 2022 release date. Animator Nick Kondo announced on June 9th, 2020 that development on the sequel had begun, so we should anticipate that it'll be ready for the October 2022 release date, excluding any delays. Chris Miller, the show's producer, has already hinted at what we may expect. He claims that new and innovative art methods are being developed for the next Spider-Verse film, and that they are already blowing them away. He added fuel to the fire by stating that it would make the first film appear quaint in comparison. Those are very bold words, and they have definitely piqued our interest. The major question is, why is Spider-Man 2099 fighting Miles when we'd have imagined they'd get along just fine? Maybe it's simply some preemptive drama before they band together to fight a larger threat? Remember that small tussle Miles had with Peter B. Parker in the first film? Maybe it's something of that sort. Sony also revealed the first official synopsis for Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse when they announced the sequel's title, Part 1. According to the synopsis, Miles Morales returns for an epic adventure that will transport Brooklyn's full-time friendly neighborhood Spider-Man across the multiverse to team up with Gwen Stacy and a new team of Spider people to face off against a villain more powerful than anything they've ever faced. After seeing him fight Miles in the trailer, might that villain be Spider-Man 2099? Certainly not. We're guessing it's someone we haven't met yet. We do know, however, that the sequel won't tell the entire narrative because it has been confirmed to be a two-part event, as we've talked about earlier. Miles' story is vast. Lord and Miller explained when they decided to split it into two films for Entertainment Weekly in December of 2021. He said that they scripted what they believed the storyline should be, and to their surprise, it turned out to be two films rather than one. They're currently working on both of them, so if one is released this year, we should get the other one in 2023. The pair remained tight-lipped on the plot and whether or not we'd see Spider-Man, John Mulaney, Spider-Man Noir, Nicolas Cage, and Penny Parker, Kimiko Glenn return. Miles will reunite with some old pals and meet a lot of new ones. That's all they said, so maybe we'll see all of the other Spider people from the previous two films, and then some. Details you might have missed from the teaser. Gwen has found a way to reunite with Miles in his universe, as demonstrated in the teaser, which opens the sequel up to further crossovers from both old and new characters. Producers Phil Lord and Chris Miller have stated that Silk, or Cindy Moon, a fellow student of Peter's, who had also been bitten by the radioactive spider, and Spider-Punk would appear in future films, and this is only the beginning. The teaser film that announced the sequel's previous release date featured flashing logos of all the various Spider-Man versions, which gives us a hint as to which new characters could appear in the sequel. Takuya Yamashiro, a somewhat unknown Spider-Man, was quickly spotted by keen-eyed followers. Do you hear crickets chirping in your head? Spider-Man, or Takuya Yamashiro, is a virtually unknown Spider-Man. Under a license agreement between them and Marvel, Japanese studio Toei was given complete liberty to make their own version of Spider-Man. Aside from that, Peter Parker, played by Tom Holland, was supposed to appear in the first movie. According to Tom, there was meant to be another Peter Parker. It was supposed to be like an Easter egg with a scenario in a railway station or something. But that's just what he said. Perhaps he's lying to us, but we'll find out soon enough. Despite the fact that it didn't happen the first time, there may be room for him in the sequel, especially when considering Holland's own multiverse-spanning Spider-Man movie's massive popularity. The funny glitch from the computer game Marvel's Spider-Man Miles Morales, in which Miles is randomly transformed into a patio heater that may then swing around the city, could appear in the sequel as an Easter egg as well. No, we're obviously kidding, but imagine though. We don't really think they're going to add a glitch from their video game, but then again, anything can happen. Who knows? Do you think Tom Holland will make a guest appearance as an animated character? Be sure to let us know in the comments down below.